What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a film that was released in theaters a little while ago now, and it was produced by Shudder and should be coming to Shudder streaming services soon. I know it's on VOD right now. You can rent it on Amazon. When I saw the trailer to this movie in the theaters, I wasn't drawn to it completely. It didn't look perfect in the trailers, but it stars Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage will draw me in to watch about any movie, no matter what the quality is, because I genuinely love Nicolas Cage. And despite him picking some really terrible movies to be involved in throughout his career, he always brings something to whatever movie he's in. And this premise was interesting enough for me to want to check it out. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is Arcadian. Arcadian is directed by Ben Brewer. In a near future, normal life on Earth has been decimated. Paul and his two sons, Thomas and Joseph, have been living a half life, tranquility by day and torment by night. Every night after the sun sets, they face the unrelenting attacks of a mysterious and violent evil. One day, when Thomas doesn't return home before sundown, Paul must leave the safety of their fortified farm to find him. A nightmarish battle ensues that forces the family to execute a desperate plan to survive. So, as I said, I was kind of skeptical through the trailer, but I really liked Nicolas Cage, and seeing that Shudder's name was on it, I always typically check out anything that Shudder puts out, and this movie was really disappointing. I found it to be incredibly underwhelming, and it's not by any means the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, but it is very formulaic. It's borrowing from a ton of movies that already exist, and it doesn't really do anything new with it, and I'm going to break the film down for you today. So the plot description gives you a very detailed analysis. Our three main characters in this film are Paul, played by Nicolas Cage, and his two sons, Joseph, played by Jaden Martell, and Thomas, played by Maxwell Jenkins. And we see him at the beginning of the movie. He's running through the streets of this city. We see him with these two babies, and we jump forward into the future, and his two babies have grown up into teenagers, and they live in this country house together. And very early on, it establishes that Joseph is the very intelligent child. He spends a lot of time in the house coming up with these inventions and doing research and reading all the time. Where Thomas is the opposite. He wants to go out and explore. There's a family that lives really close by next door, and they have a young daughter, and he's interested in her, and so he's constantly wanting to go over there to spend time with her. And you can tell there's tension within the family, but Paul loves his sons, and every single night they lock their house down. Something comes to the house and beats on the outside of the doors, but in the morning it's completely safe and everything is fine. And as the plot description states, something happens one night where Thomas goes out to that family's house and spends some time, cuts it a little bit too close to dark, falls down a pit, can't get out, and Paul has to go out in the middle of the night to try to find his son. And it leads up to all of these events surrounding these creatures where the family has to try to fight for survival. So as I said, I thought this movie was really underwhelming. For starters, I will say on a positive note, the creatures do look pretty cool, but the CGI is a mess. And I've seen a lot of people complimenting how unique the creature design is and what have you. And there are some moments where if you don't look for too long, they look really great. But the moments where the camera lingers on these creatures for more than about 5 seconds, the construction of the creatures with the CGI software, it's so just like poorly put together to where you can almost see it like shake a little bit if you focus really hard. There's a scene where one of the sons is sitting in the living room, and this like hand comes out and it gets longer and longer, and I think the director thought the shot would look really cool, but it looks really messy, and it kind of shows the limitations of the budget, where I feel like I would have liked this more if the creatures would have just been people in costumes. Like if you would have used your budget and done something more practically, and make like even something more along the lines of like The Thing, where like the practical work is just so incredible that like you could focus on the creativity of how these creatures can look. And I realize CGI lets you do more, but if you can't get it to look really great, I'm not sure why you would pick that. I did like the early parts of the film and the building up of the family. They try really hard to build up this dynamic. Obviously, Nicolas Cage always does great in whatever he's in, but he's barely in this movie. He doesn't have any of his signature unhinged moments. Really, he pretty much could have been replaced by any other actor, and I'm sure they just grabbed him in order to try to draw attention. They really try hard to give the two sons personality traits, but the only personality traits they give them is one is really smart and one takes more risks. And because of that, it really struggles to build any kind of emotional attachment for you to care when they're put in danger. And this movie, I said it in my Letterboxd review, it feels less of a full-length feature film and more of like an episode of a television show or like a segment from an anthology horror film. The narrative structure is so thin. It's like they introduce you to this family and you think the movie's going to go one direction with the son falling in the pit, and that like wraps up, and then they have to try to come up with something else to keep the movie going, and the last 25-30 minutes just feels like a complete jumbled together mess where it's like, okay, we have to pad an hour and a half runtime, so let's keep trying to add things in here. They add stuff about the other family where there's people living on their farm, and these guys that live on that farm with them get upset with one of the kids, and they try to go this whole different direction, but everything about it seems to just come out of nowhere. Like we have to have some other plot device because the initial idea for the film was the son falling down in this thing, and we have to have it go somewhere else. It just became kind of tedious to sit through. The visuals aren't all that great. It's very darkly color graded. Like the movie isn't super exciting to look at, and that's fine if you're trying to darkly color grade to complement the mood and the tone of the film, but I think a lot of it was to also try to hide some of the CGI, because there are moments they focus really heavy on it, but there are a lot of other moments where you can tell they're trying their best to hide it, and I feel like because of that budgetary limitation that they couldn't pay more attention to detail with like the quality of the cinematography or the editing. And it's a real shame because I feel like the two kids that play the sons both do a fine job. Their performances, they're dedicated to the roles. They have decent chemistry. Nicolas Cage does what he can with the material that he's given. His character really isn't all that special. But the movie just feels like a copy and paste replica of so many films I've seen before. I mean, obviously, most recently, you could pick A Quiet Place, which just the setting and the creature design, or even something like A24's It Comes at Night, where it's like, shut yourself in the evening because you're afraid of what's outside. And there's so many movies that you can go back through film history and be like, okay, this has been done before. And as I've said in multiple reviews before, I don't mind doing something that's already been done before, but something to it to make it your own. When every plot device and everything feels so formulaic and cliche, it's really hard to stay invested. And this was just really like the most run-of-the-mill, average creature feature you could watch that doesn't even give you unhinged Nicolas Cage. So I would pass on this one personally, even when it comes to Shudder. It's not really doing anything new, and it's really not all that exciting either. So have you seen Arcadian? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was incredibly underwhelming, and it left me pretty disappointed. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.